Hi guys, welcome back to a live session of Unraid questions and answers. It's more or less like an email. A guy called Kevin's emailed me in and literally he's gave me a small office solution that he wants to go for. And very much I'm looking at what his suggestions are. And basically it's going to be two options, option one and option two. So they don't look like they've got many discs in there. With Unraid, what I wanted to tell you, if you're going to build a system, I would build it with quite a few SSD drives. The whole point of that is have them. You don't need a RAID card as such. You can use the LSI cards, but you've got to must put it in an IT mode. It's called. Once you got it into IT mode, that allow Unraid to manage the disks themselves. Unraid works better when it can control the disks itself, not actually hardware converting the SSDs to like an Unraid solution. You've got to allow Unraid to see all the drives as unique disks in the case. So the LSI controller cards, which I go for, you firmware it to LSI. On my website it details how to do that as well, and I did a video on here a little while ago about how to do that as well. Then if you're going to go for Unraid, Unraid does virtualization, does a file and print server, basically does everything an office environment would need. My two scenarios here, I've got two servers down here that both run VM on both boxes. Okay, so I've got SSDs as my cache pools on both boxes, they're both identical. Then I've got standard disks in the cases, which are set up as for saving long-term files and stuff. Now I'm thinking about changing my solution here because I run the VMwares on the SSD drives because SSD drives read and write performance is so much higher and faster. So when you run Windows 10 and you signed like 2 gig of RAM to it, it boots really quick and instant. So it's nice. So one of the VMware boxes I've got here runs all the main file stuff. So it's Microsoft Exchange, file and print, server on there as well. But I mainly use that for QuickBooks, run the QuickBooks files, which needs a server environment side of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to use that at all. But mainly I've got Microsoft Exchange on there. I've also got a Windows 10 machine running FTP, so that allows office scanners that scan from their offices over to the cloud, so the virtual servers here can access those, and that's how my remote access users save documents and stuff like that. So what I would suggest to do, if you're going to build an Unraid server, I wouldn't use Hyper-V because Hyper-V you can run on a platform. The way Hyper-V works is you get a server, you build a server, you install Microsoft Windows server on top of that. Then within one Windows server you can activate the Hyper-V version, which basically means it runs on top of server, Microsoft server as well. So basically you've got building overhead. So you've got building extra, you've got to make sure you've got extra RAM for the run the operating system itself. Then you need to make sure you've got some overheads on top so you can then sit the Hyper-V on top and then run your virtual environments alongside that. The only trouble is, because it's not bare bones as we call it, you're still running on an operating system to run operating systems on top. If something crashes on that operating system, you lose your VMs on top as well. Now, I find in the past, like VMware, that VMware literally goes straight to bare bones. What do I mean by bare bones? It doesn't need an operating system to run, so that it just gets installed. It runs a very small Linux type of environment on the bare bones system, then you run all your VMs. So in theory, nearly 90%, or say 95% of your hardware is used for your virtual environments. Where you, in Hyper-V you would lose some of that because you want to maintain the operating system that actually runs the Hyper-V on top. It's a bit messy, and with the VMware type solutions, you can run from one hardware to the other and drop over your VMs. Where Microsoft, I've stayed away Microsoft's virtualization because it's messy. I had a client that run 2 servers with VMs on top, and it was just, I prefer VM. It's just why I worked out. I love VMware for that side of it all. But I'm now working with the Unraid stuff because Unraid stuff means you don't have to have a physical server like Dell, HP. You don't have to be specific on the server hardware you've got. That's where you spend thousands of pounds. Where Unraid runs on a PC, whether it's built for gaming or not, it'll run on there. It'll run on any hardware, which hardware you can access anywhere. With server type environments, when you've got a server, you brought a server for it, it's specialised. It means you can't just go and get the parts and replace it with it. You have to order it, wait for it to come in. So there's all that issues you have with a server environment. Yes, you can buy spares, have them sat on the shelf, but it's expensive. But with at least with a PC, memory's easy to get hold of. You can buy that next day and get delivered. So you can buy spares in there and it's not going to be mega expensive. That's the way I've always go now, especially got a small budget. and Unraid does the job. Unraid again installs on the hardware straight on there, bang. There's no operating system as such that runs it. It runs on its own Linux kernel, which is really stable and works fine. You run the VMs on that. You can also, if you're running a VM on it, you can also run file and print. You can run tons of disk space in there for your storage solution. It all works, and it's great. You don't have to mega sign the operating system just to get that running. It works fine. As I said, on both of those boxes there, they both run VM. One runs all desktops, which is all Windows Pro. The other one runs the Microsoft operating system, like Microsoft Exchange. It's also got Windows Server 2016 on there, and it's got a couple of bits as well that runs on there as well. Oh, and it's running SQL Server. I think it's 2012 version. It's an old version anyway. Runs nicely. So if you're going to run Unraid build, I will go for the hardware you've literally specified. Both of those are ideal. Just make sure you've got tons of RAM. Get as much RAM in there as possible, especially if you're running virtual servers. And make sure you've got, I wouldn't go for the SSD 250 drives. Yeah, they are cheaper now. I'm going to change all my 500 SSD 500 gigabyte SSDs to maybe a bit more robust, more NAS orientated. There's a lot of new stuff coming out from Seagate that's literally built for NAS. So they're 480 gigs, a little bit more expensive, but they're built to be on 24/7. The drives I currently use, the SSD drives I use in the moment at Western Digital, they're built for they're built for the very first generation of NAS, and as NAS come on board, they're now doing like a much more harder version, more warranty, more guarantee of how long it could be on running, how many teraflops and stuff like that it can handle. But they've been really good. Plus they've got long-term warranty. I've had 2 SSD fails, not in the same time, one at a time. I've taken the drive out because I'm using more than one SSD in there. I can still take it out. It doesn't cause any performance issues or caching issues. That goes off in the post. Then a week later, I get them sending me a brand new one back out. I plug it back in, and then it redoes all the cache on that side. So I would always make sure you're running 3 SSDs. So if any one of those fails, you've still got the system running. I wouldn't put one single one in there to run the VMs off it. I wouldn't put one single in there for data. So if you want data and your data is going to be files, CAD drawings, Word documents, things like that, I will put on standard disks because then that's long term. They're not against teraflops. If you're not requiring a large amount of disk space, I'll go SSD all the way. So I will go for at least if I had money to spend, I'll go for 4 1 terabyte SSDs as out of my cache pool. Then I'll buy 8 SSDs at 2 terabytes each. They're a bit expensive though, at 2 terabytes each. How that's my long-term storage. Then storage solutions, saving to network will be absolutely quick because it's all SSD based. That's the way I would definitely go it. But obviously with a budget, I would then literally rethink my disk space and go, okay, I'll go 3 SSDs for my cache pool, and I'll buy 3 normal SATA hard drives at minimum 4 terabytes each. When that goes into the system, you probably get around about, say 4, you get 8 terabytes. So you lose a drive, you get about 8 terabytes of storage space, which will be ample space for you. And if you decide to add more in later, it's easy to buy a new drive, bung it in there, boot up. Unraid will see it as another drive there. You just assign it, click OK, and it adds it to your volume really nicely. And Unraid manages all that for you. So as long as you've got the SLI controller card and you've got in IT mode, you can add up to 8 or more devices depending on your case size as well. That's what I go for. If you want to be running, when you run virtual servers, CAD. If you're running CAD software, it's a no-no. It doesn't run on virtual environments very well because it requires a lot of processing power. So if your users are in the same office as your Unraid server, you can then build a virtual server, assign a dedicated GPU to it, and RAM as well, and you can get away with doing CAD drawings straight from the virtual environments. But you won't be able to run that over the internet because obviously you can't assign the GPU out and stuff. You could probably remote access it use remote desktop access to it. That may work, but maybe a bit sluggish because again, you're working remotely from it. But if you're using Unraid and you want your CAD users running off the virtual server, using CAD, and you've got enough money to buy a dedicated graphics card for each environment, because it depends on your motherboard too. Your motherboard must be able to support more than one graphics card if you're going to be dedicating a graphics card to each of your virtual server. And then that allow you then to have separate screens, separate mouse and keyboards. So you're going to have to make sure you got additional slots to allow to put in multiple USB ports, so you can assign those to each of the environments as well. It can get really technical and really up on that, but if you're literally going to have people remote logging in just using Word, Excel, PowerPoint and Outlook as normal as remote access users, then you can just literally go for a standard virtual server type thing on here running Windows 10, which is nice and easy. Unraid will do that. Any local users that are actually on the local network next to Unraid that run in CAD, that can run directly from their desktop PC, and then you can use Unraid as your file and print server, store it long-term storage and all that sort of stuff. It's great for that. Hopefully I might answer some of your questions. I mean, you're talking about storage covering between 1 and 2 terabytes. I mean, drives nowadays, you can buy really cheap 4 terabyte drives that are NAS. Seagate do them. I'm trying to remember, if mine is Seagate in my ones, they're 4 terabytes each. They're less than 80 quid to buy. And if you can fit 8 of those in, that will give you tons of storage space, probably something like 16, 20 terabytes as well. If you can afford to buy the 10 terabyte hard drives, because they're dropped down in price now, I think they're still a couple hundred quid each, maybe a little bit more. If you fit 4 of those in, that's massive amounts of terabytes of storage space. And what you're going to use it for and stuff. But I will start small, work out currently how much data you already consume, and then triple that to say that'd be my future goal, and then put discs into that size to start with. Then as you get bigger, you can then add another disc and another disc and another disc. But I would always state, if you're just going to run an SSD, I will start with 3 minimum drives on the main cache pool. And if you're going to do SSDs, your long-term storage, at least start with 2 minimum itself, because then that doubles up and you've got some sort of redundancy. Do check out the SSD cards and the long-term SATA drives, because nowadays it depends. If you get the NAS ones, they come with 5 years guarantee, and you get 2 years warranty, say full data recovery, and then you get normal warranty after that, 3 years the standard warranty. So if you get those sort of drives, that basically means if a drive fails in your Unraid box, you can take the drive out. They will do a free data recovery for you. They'll send a brand new drive back with the data on it, as long as it's recoverable. That way you can plug it back into the system in the same port, and that way Unraid will just add it in. It won't actually need to worry about rebuilding that drive, because the data's there for it, which is really clever. If you put another drive in there, brand new, it will actually rebuild it up and make it part of the system. And I think the biggest thing I don't actually ever mention is what I like about Unraid is when you're dealing with a server in the past that I used to deal with, which used the hard RAID controller controlling the RAID itself, you had to put the disk in the same channel or numbered orders, because if you got them the wrong way around, the RAID will fall apart and won't work. So you put a drive out, you got to replace it with a drive. If you take the drive apart, you've got to make sure you put it back in the same order for it to boot from. With Unraid, it doesn't need that. If you decide you take all your drives out and you think, oh, I forgot to write down what order they were in, it doesn't matter. Plug them in there. It recognised each of the serial numbers of the hard drive to know where it actually goes, and you just click it all in, bang, job sorted. There's no particular order. You can mess around with them. Because I just started writing, I think, when I started looking at Unraid and how it deals with it, doesn't need to be in a particular order. As long as the drive serial numbers match, it picks it back up, which is brilliant. So that way you don't have to worry about take drives out which order they were in, because that was a nightmare, especially if you took them out and never in the past write down the numbers on the drives to say which cable it belonged to. You're screwed, especially if you've got 3 or 4 drives sat there and you don't know what order they're going. You could spend like years trying to find the right order, because you put in the wrong order, it can be overwiped and stuff. It was a nightmare. So them days we had to write down what they belong to. Unraid doesn't need that. It's great. So Unraid all the way. I love Unraid. I think it's brilliant. I'm going to try out some other software. There's another one coming to a thing called FreeNAS. Apparently FreeNAS is better on speed, but I don't know how much better, because I'm trying to get as much speed I can out of Unraid. But FreeNAS is meant to be better on speed. I looked at the interface. I love the Unraid interface. I'm not sure about the FreeNAS. FreeNAS also does virtualization as well, but I don't think they're compatible. So if you've got an Unraid FreeNAS, I don't think you can swap the VMs over, so you can be careful on that one. You're going to go Unraid, stick with Unraid, but we're going to do some tests, because I've got a spare box now that I can play with FreeNAS on to see how well it is and see if it is good on fast accessing it on the network. It's meant to be, what people say anyway. So, but if you want to go for speed, the speed now is going to over jumping to 10 gigabit Ethernet itself. That's the only way to get really top speed out of it. So if you want to go beyond the gigabit speed, it's definitely worth going to the 10 gigabit cards. With the 10 gigabit switches, it gets a bit expensive, but they are slowly coming down in price. But yeah, any question you've got on Unraid guys out there, and Kev, if you come back to me if that will not answer your questions, or if it's not, send me an email with some more questions, and we'll get something tied down with you and see what you want to do and stuff. But yeah, ask any questions away. As I said, I'm running this as it's a live system. Brilliant, I love it. I think I'm going to change this to my configuration around soon, so I'm going to do some videos on that very soon anyway. What I'm changing, how I'm changing it, and why I'm changing it. So that will come soon. And lots more videos coming out as well. In the last couple of days, it's been really, really hot in the man cave here. It's been 22 degrees at the moment in here. It was like 30, nearly 40 degrees. And my aircon unit was struggling to cool the shed down. So I haven't been doing much videos. I've been literally trying to cool down and stay out of the shed for a while. But I have come up with my man cave. I've painted it white because white reflects heat. And so far I've painted that wall on the outside. And it's so cool to touch even when it's like blaring sundown all day. It's still very cold. So I'm reducing my heat inside and it works well. Just got to literally do something with the roof, because the roof is the main point of where it gets so hot in there as well. But anyway, enough to talk about that. That's another time for another video. So I hope that answers your questions. Anybody out there, you got network issues, want to talk about it, not sure what to go for, looking to upgrade something, just give me a shout. That's what I'm here for. This is what the channel's all about. Interactions. You guys send me questions, see if I can come up with the answers and help you out somewhere along the line itself. I've got over 20 years plus experience on IT. run out of need a drink now. 20 years plus experience in IT, and I've done hosting and all sorts. So that's what I'm here for, to get all out of my head now. I still do bits and pieces from time to time, and I still enjoy IT, and I do miss IT as well. I love it as well. But this is my chance to get it all out of my head and get it onto the YouTube for you guys to learn from, and hopefully get something out of it. So anyway, thanks a lot guys for watching. Thanks for all the lovely new subscribers. Good stuff coming very soon. Looking at some cables, Cat 5 and Cat 7, what the speed differences are, and obviously what the cable looks like inside, what the big changes are. So catch me on that one very soon. So see you later guys. Cheers for watching.